I told you so. I knew it. Photography is awesome. It's great.
It is.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Pal2Tech. So a few months ago, at a recent FUJIFILM summit, an announcement was made that absolutely astounded me. It had nothing to do with a new camera or a new lens, not even a new film simulation. What happened was that FUJIFILM entered into a partnership with Dr. Lauren Cook, a clinical psychologist and mental health expert, to produce a specific survey titled Frame of Mind. The study aimed to investigate, among other things, whether or not photography has an impact on our emotions, our relationships, and our overall well-being. Can photography actually make people happier? And if so, how much of an impact do photos have? Dr. Cook is the author of Generation Anxiety. There's a lot of great tips and advice in this book, and not just for Gen Z and Millennials. I mean, Gen X learned a few things in here as well. But now, let's meet Dr. Cook and find out, does photography make you happier? Welcome, Dr. Cook. It is great to see you. Thank you for joining me.
I'm so excited for this conversation today. Thank you so much for including me.
I saw that media release that Fujifilm put out, and it was put out around the time when they launched the GFX 100 RF camera. And did Fuji approach you with this study? Did you approach Fuji? Tell me about how this all came about.
Fuji did approach me with this, and it was one of those things, I get approached about a lot of different things. This was an immediate yes for me because as a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in anxiety, I am always looking for solutions for my clients, the people I support. How can we find more joy in our lives? It was so abundantly apparent in this study, the Frame of Mind survey that was done, the impact that photography can have. And in honestly like a very easy and tangible way that's so accessible. In a world where so many people say, mental health services, it's so expensive, it's hard to access, the time it takes. When you see in this research that looking through our photos or putting up photos in our home, part of the study found 8 in 10 Americans feel more joy, more happiness, more contentment just having pictures around their home. These are simple changes that have profound effects.
So you had about, 2,000 participants involved in the study? Mm-hmm. More than half experiencing reduced anxiety, and 3 in 4 Americans agree that looking through their photos brings more happiness than scrolling through social media. I've always thought, and I know that the viewers of this channel know how important photography is. There's no doubt about it. But just the fact that 8 out of 10 people displaying photos in their living spaces contributes to greater happiness, that's not an expensive fix if you want to be a little bit happier, right?
The research showed that both having the photos up in our home, but also scrolling through our photos also impacted mood. Some aspects of the study found that we're more likely to smile more, we're more likely to laugh more. In fact, even when people are grieving and going through a hard time, people find that photography can really boost their spirits. So, and this will be impactful too, I think, to you, Chris. We found that people find looking through their photos is more effective for their mental health than gardening, journaling, reading a book, and even shopping. I don't know if you are a shopper, Chris.
Oh, come on. I never go to B&H. Or, Really?
Truly, yes. I know. That's why when I saw this, I'm like, I have to be a part of this and share the impact of this research because I truly believe in it, both in my own life and I see it in my client's life. And I think it's something we all can connect to. This study now really shows it.
The study also mentioned that 71% agree that it increases the enjoyment of an activity. In other words, more enjoyment in the mundane.
So what that tells us is we're actually looking more at those boring Tuesdays, if you will, taking photos of the soup we made that night or, what we saw when we went on a walk. People use photography, and we saw this in the research, to be more creative. 72% said it's a form of self-expression. So there's that aspect of it. But I think it just gives it a little bit more life, right? Like, let's say, you're making a dinner and you document look at this beautiful like chicken souffle I made. Like it's a moment to be proud. That's not my case, but I'm sure for someone else.
Not mine either. Maybe fish sticks or something.
Fish sticks. There you go. Chicken tenders. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's my speed. But, or you take a walk around the block. It's the same walk you've done every day for the last 5 years. But you know what? Ooh, I see that little bumblebee. It's springtime. Let me capture that. That's where it really gives life to the mundane. And I think that's a cool thing. We are using photography pretty constantly. And I would argue even more than we were 20 years ago. I think that's one of the blessings of, being able to take photos digitally in some ways and in all aspects. Taking photos, looking at photos, printing photos, sharing photos. Like there's a lot of ways we can connect with it, right? And so I think we can have a lot of rituals surrounding it. I mean, I send to my folks and my in-laws like a daily drop of my son, the pictures that I took that day, and I printed photos this past week, like that I have ready to go in the frames. So photos really can be so bolstering for our well-being. And when the world can feel so heavy, so sad, it can remind us, you know what, I've got really good people in my life, or there are some really beautiful things in my life where I've had amazing experiences, travels, trips. How nice to give a little dose of that to ourselves every day.
It's not just about the photo, right? Mm-hmm. It's about taking the photo and the experience you have looking at it again or reviewing it and revisiting that moment, right?
Mm-hmm. That nails it on the head. And Chris, I am a new parent. Well, my son turns 2 next month. Thousands of I know. I've got a little boy. He keeps me on my toes. But thousands of photos. And one thing that I think is so precious, and I see this in my own life, I see this with so many of my clients, there's a ritual for a lot of parents at the end of the day where you sit down as a couple or with your partner, or you share the photos with someone else, and you look through the photos of the day and you relive the day and those sweet moments. I think that's a beautiful thing. So it'd be fascinating to see in the research. We didn't look at this in particular to see, are there different seasons of life that people are taking more photos at a set point in time? I mean, I would imagine, hypothesize, parents, we are taking maybe the most photos, I would argue.
100%. Photography can do things with time that very few other mediums can do. I mean, you look at when you have children and you're using photography to document, you don't realize how profound it is until you look at it years later. Now, if you're looking through those, is there a side to this of maybe too much of a good thing? Because I'm finding looking through some of these photos, I actually get sad.
65% of people said that they found solace in photos, that it can be heartening. I think it does help us face our realities, that what we have is precious and it's a gift and it's an opportunity to be grateful for these beautiful things that we have in our lives. And I think that's where we can shift how we look at it, while also holding the bittersweet angle. I very much love in therapy what's called the dialectic, the both and, that we can feel the sadness of like, oh, my baby doesn't look like a 2-year-old anymore. And how beautiful that I get to raise this child and see their growth through photography. So I think there can be room for both. There was a focus especially on looking at Gen Z, millennials too, but they looked at a lot of different generational samples, but so much of my work is around millennials and Gen Z in particular. Gen Z is having such a spike in mental health struggles. They've also been tagged the lonely generation. And so when you look at how photography, and we saw this in the Frame of Mind survey, people feel more connected to their loved ones. It's a way that they share information with their friends. More than half of respondents said that, by the way, about 60 to 70%, in fact. You look at that, and that's really bolstering when Gen Z in particular feels very disconnected a lot of times.
What is that about photos that connects with people so much, at least that you've seen with Gen Z and the millennial generation?
They document history in a way that nothing else does. And it preserves so profoundly moments, people, points in time. I'm seeing photography move to more of the realness, and you'll see this in a lot of Gen Zs, right? Like when you maybe go on on a millennial or Gen X Instagram page, it is a lot of the curated content. I mean, Gen Z will post like a double chin of themselves, like, haha.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They show the real moments. And you see that in the carousels, where they're showing, yeah, here's something silly that happened or something. Or you see a lot of women sharing, like, here's me with not sucking my stomach in, and this is my real body. Like, I love that stuff. And I think we need more of that.
Why is there so much anxiety?
We're seeing the prevalence increase and severity of increase, both levels. And there's a lot of reasons why, I would say there's kind of two layers happening. You've got this societal, cumulative effect happening, but then you also have it happening in people's individual lives too. So looking at the societal side of things, we live in a very different world right now, where there are daily stressors where young adults are reporting they feel unsafe in the United States every single day. Whether they're going to the grocery store, their school. I mean, they've been having to do lockdown drills since they were like in preschool. That's going to have a psychological effect that people feel fight or flight, nearly constantly.
Right.
And then the Stress in America survey is released every year by the American Psychological Association. It was such good research that they're doing. They haven't released 2025 yet, but 2024 was saying, that so many Americans are experiencing distress about the political turmoil in this country. No matter which side of the aisle you're on, people are stressed about it. Relationships are falling apart because of it. And a lot of people don't want to have children because they're so concerned about the future. They're concerned about our planet and our environment. I mean, I could give you a laundry list. And then the other aspect I'll say is, personally within Millennial and Gen Z's lives, they have played the game. They have been the good kids, if you will. They've gone to college. They've done all the extracurriculars. And then, lo and behold, can't buy a house, can't get a job, feeling like, what the heck? I did everything I was supposed to, and I'm struggling more financially than any previous generation. So when you frame it that way, that's a recipe for feeling anxious. And I would argue moving into depression as well.
This is such a helpful guide, but I wish that it would never have had to have been written.
I know.
No offense.
I know.
It's a great, listen, it's exactly the manual you want to have. I feel bad for Gen Z. Having a device with you 24/7 that also has social media on it. Kids, maybe teenagers, they're going about their daily lives, and there's this time limit of, I haven't checked in for a couple of hours because I've been in class and the teacher's taken away the phones, right? Or put them in a basket or whatever. And that there's something that builds up in the brain. And so by checking in, it releases that a little bit. Is it cortisol?
So there is cortisol, which is highest in the morning. That's why a lot of clients actually throw up even in the morning because cortisol is high. Yes, I have a lot of folks who are like chronic morning vomiters, I mean, and that's the thing. Anxiety is so physical. It's so somatic. It's not just from the neck up. It's not just cognitive. It has a physical effect on us. But yes, cortisol is an aspect, serotonin, dopamine. You see a lot of people, and Gen Z will tell you this themselves. They're addicted to the dopamine hits, and we've kind of become like little rats hitting the pellets, of like when you go on social media, you're just trying to hit a pellet. And it's almost equivalent to smoking a joint or getting high, where people just want to numb themselves out from the pain and the anxiety. But it reduces us in that way. And so a huge part of my work is giving people distress tolerance skills of learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's huge.
You wrote about that in here. Yes.
This is where we want to do things from a place of health, right? We're using photography to show our relationships or to be a form of creativity, I think when we are mindful about how we're using the tools, it can be very effective. And that's the direction I recommend going. When people start, comparing themselves to other people, whether it's their bodies or, oh, this person went on a fancier vacation than I did, that's where we have to check it for ourselves.
And photographs are such a huge part. So on one hand, their lives are being caught and captured more than ever. Has your research shown any kind of negative effect of that? In other words, like constantly being recorded and photographed, and permanently so in a lot of cases?
Yeah, I think we have to be wise about how we engage with photography, right? Like this study really looked at all the positive, beneficial ways that it impacts people's mental health. And one aspect of it too found it's not necessarily in the scrolling of other people's content. That is not what's bringing people joy, and we see that a lot, with even things like body dysmorphia, right? When you go on someone else's account, you start getting into the comparison game. Where we saw the real effect is when you are engaging with your content, your photos, that is what bolsters our well-being. And, one thing that I thought was really interesting in this study too was the creativity element to it. Over 70% of respondents said that photography is a form of self-expression. And, we look a lot at the benefits of mindfulness in particular. And I really think photography can be a great way to practice mindfulness, actually, right? You're going on a walk, you notice a flower. Let me get that detail.
So you mentioned it was called the 10-10-10. This is a way to help reduce anxiety for millennials and Gen Z, but I would think for anyone, right? It doesn't matter what.
Yes.
One of the best ways we can sit with our anxiety is knowing what we value. One is to implement the 10-10-10 rule, and you ask yourself, how am I going to feel about this 10 minutes from now, right? 10 months from now or 10 years from now. And so on one hand, you have photography freezing that moment. Would you still recommend this, the 10-10-10 rule, with regard to looking at photos? Because looking at photos obviously would be something you could do 10 years later, looking back 10 years ago. Would that also be a good anxiety reducing aid as well?
Absolutely. It helps us get perspective. Part of why we get so anxious is we get so caught up in the future and all the different ways things can go wrong. So many folks that I work with have what we call anticipatory anxiety, where they're worrying about every little thing that could happen that has not in fact happened yet. And something that can be really, really helpful with photography is looking back a bit too, not just the 10 years forward, but 10 years ago now, from now, like were you looking back and you see, oh, those things I were worried about, things worked out fine. Humans have incredible resilience, and we can look back at our photos and say, wow, look how far I have come. Look how I have grown and evolved and changed. There may be sadness as well, and it's not just about putting a positive spin on everything. We don't want to gaslight ourselves, but we can look back and say, wow, okay, I have seen an evolution of myself. And we can use that looking to the future too. Look what I've gone through. I know that I will be able to get through whatever's coming next for me too, whether I know what's ahead or not.
I get a lot of feedback on the channel and a lot of questions, and a lot of them have to do with trying to achieve perfection in a photo. And I get it. Because part of the experience of growing as a photographer is to be able to translate your vision of the scene exactly down to every bit of the light, every bit of the angle of the focus, all of that. All the modern tools that we have, there's just still a level of anxiety that I see in this group that really does need to be reduced.
When we can give ourselves the permission to enjoy the photo for what it is, for what is happening in the photo, rather than the quality of it per se, but focus,
That's really hard for some people in this group.
Oh, I know. I am probably not preaching to the choir here. I'm, challenging in this way. But I think that's a good challenge, to allow yourself to go one layer deeper of what is it actually about? What is the why of the photo versus how did the photo look? And that's why I partnered with FUJIFILM, not because I'm a photographer, but because I believe in the value of photography. And I think it's such a gift that so many photographers give to people, that you are giving people something so precious. And I hope for your viewers that they can give themselves that preciousness too.
You look at the study and you realize that the higher purpose of all this is far more important than if you have, ISO noise or whatever, or, oh my goodness, what if it's not completely sharp?
What is the emotion it makes a person feel? Like, to me, that is so much of what photography is about. What emotion are you conveying, And if that emotion carries through in the photo, to a layperson, mission accomplished.
Photography, and I think some of you will agree with me on this one, can be an isolating thing to do, because you're behind. You're looking from the sidelines at the world. Yeah. And I love that about what you mentioned in here. And a lot of times, get more connected to your community and the people around you. Fuji, if you're listening, we got to get further with this. This is incredible. I mean, photography is awesome. It's great.
It is. There is a reason why we're all drawn to it. So I know. I love seeing this frame of mind survey results. It so lands. It so resonates. And yes, I hope to continue, supporting their work.
I've interviewed other photographers. They're very passionate about capturing mood and moment, or they'll visit someone who in their place of work, their workshop, their artist studio, and they want to really just connect in that way. And I'm noticing that the person who seems to benefit the most is the photographer, because they get to see the photos, they get to create the photos. It's all their expression coming out that I think is so healing for a lot people.
It's a form of therapy. It's therapeutic.
Give it a try. I mean,
yes,
take some photos.
This happens at a young age too. Like, we are hardwired to love photography and to love to see our connections out in that way.
Do you have any advice for someone who is feeling a lot of anxiety, but feels that maybe, I don't know about this photography stuff. I mean, I've got a phone, but I don't take a whole lot of pictures. Or what would you say to them? Like, how could they get started?
Embrace the imperfection, embrace a beginner's mindset. I think, like I said, as a layperson, I think photography can feel very intimidating. How do I access that, right? And really focusing on, what is the point and the purpose of it? And this study gives us the point and the purpose of it. And so, like we said, it's about the why. And so start to learn something new. Just start to dabble and see how it develops for you. It's not about the perfection. It's about the meaning behind the whole process.
I'm going to link to all of Dr. Cook's resources. You have a TikTok account that you have a number of viewers on, I understand. We'll link to that. Instagram, your drlaurencook.com website.
That's it.
And if there's anything else, let me know, but we'll have that in the description. Please go check them out. Do you have other books, or is this the first one of many I know you're going to be writing?
I have 2 self-published books, but this is my first traditionally published book. So this has been my book baby, a labor of love.
And it shows. It shows.
Thank you.
Quite a field to navigate, and I think you've done a great job in providing that roadmap.
I appreciate that. Bye, Chris.
Bye-bye. I will leave links to Dr. Cook's website, her social media accounts, and of course, Generation Anxiety for you to check out. And I will also leave a link where you can find out more about that frame of mind survey. You know something, it is not often that a camera company does something very special like this. And I would like to extend a very sincere thank you to FUJIFILM and to Dr. Cook for conducting this study. It was an absolute honor to hear very specifically how great photography and photos can be. And you, yes, all of you, you are all a part of something much bigger and something much more important than you ever imagined. Don't ever forget that. In the meantime, I hope you found the video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. And I'll see you in a new video very soon. Take care.